There you go. Start over.
So my name is Margot. I'm the head of developer relations and partnerships at HarperDB. And also thank you guys at Women Who Code so much for having us. I'm a big fan of the organization. I've been in the Slack channel for several years now and used to attend some of the events more often and excited to kind of get back involved. So really appreciate having us here to talk today. But yeah, so HarperDB, if you have or haven't heard of us, we're a Denver-based tech startup. We've been around since about 2017. We now do have some folks kind of all around the US, but still very Denver focused. I'm right outside the Denver area in Arvada. And HarperDB is essentially a distributed data and application platform that's really just focused on being, as easy to use as possible. So it can be deployed for different scenarios, whether it's cloud or edge or on-prem, lots of different use cases that we're serving. We're really focused on edge computing at the moment. So we're working with a lot of large organizations to distribute applications and their data to the edge to reduce latency and cut costs, all those fun benefits of edge computing. And then HarperDB specifically from a technical perspective has a lot of features like user-defined APIs, a simple interface, a data store that accommodates both SQL and NoSQL. So we kind of say hybrid SQL, NoSQL. So if anyone does ever, I know the talk today isn't focused on HarperDB very much, but if anyone does ever want to check it out, we do have a super powerful free forever tier. You can spin up a free instance. We're always open to hearing feedback. If you want to give us feedback on how the user experience is after the talk today, that would be fun too. So, and since I'm on the community side of things, it's always easy to find me. We have a Slack channel, we're on Twitter. I have a podcast as well. So yeah, that's kind of on HarperDB. And then I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Jaxon, who is our field CTO and head of marketing. And he has a lot of experience designing and architecting different types of software. He's also founded a couple startups and has a lot of knowledge around product and user experience, which is hence the subject of today's talk. So I'll pass it over to Jaxon.
Hi, thanks everybody. It's really nice to be here. Thank you, Margot, for that generous introduction. And let me just share my slides. It should just work. Is that what everybody's saying?
Yes.
Outstanding. It should just work. How relentless focus on user experience empowers an organization just as much as its customers, which is the really long title that got boiled down into something much more palatable on that previous slide. I am loquacious. That is my core skill set. I will attempt to rein it in because I know we don't have all the time in the world. But in essence, this should be helpful in the grand scheme of not just coding. There will be no code as a part of this presentation. I am a recovering developer, partially reformed even, father to 2 daughters. Hence I had to code a little less so I could be a better father, because coding is one of those things that sucks you in, and you can literally open up your editor and then look at the clock and 8 hours has gone by, and sometimes I need to pick them up from school. So I've sort of deleveraged that, and now I'm hopefully playing a role where in my experience, 8 startups and 2 exits and 5 not exits, opportunities for learning, we call them, not failures, sort of informed what you think you're going to do in the world of code when you set off to start a company or build a thing, and then what inevitably happens to you over the course of that journey and what you learn from it. So hopefully you don't make the same mistakes that I made, or at least not as many times as I made them. As Margaret mentioned, I work for HarperDB. I'm the field CTO. So what that means is I basically help plan out the roadmap and how we interact with customers and what the customers are asking for. Being a relatively small startup with, I think, as of today, 23 people, we built a thing sort of as a leap of faith. We knew what we wanted as developers, but then you go to market and customers start to ask for other things. And so it's a journey of sort of melding your vision with the actual needs of the market. We're doing reasonably well as a company. we have about 100,000 deployments and a fairly robust Slack community. So we help developers get up to speed and use HarperDB, to the best of their application's potential. And that's just a little bit about, sort of where I'm coming from and my position as we start to, examine user experience and what role it plays in application development. I guess to start is, I am a self-taught developer. I typed HTML into the AOL keyword bar and took a bunch of online tutorials. And then I did the same thing with JavaScript. And at some point, everything just clicked. And it was like Neo in the Matrix, and everything made sense. And then I still wasn't rich. Because theoretically, I thought I would be disrupting everything. I'd be building the coolest, most awesome features. I'd be selling like the promise of the future and the value of technology and innovation and all that stuff. Mentoring the future, like understanding where we had screwed up and teaching other people to not screw up like that. And ultimately changing the world. That was the vision of what I wanted to do when I started this career. I came onto this scene right around 2000. So like anybody who could code was a rock star immediately. You were all rock star developers because there weren't that many of us. And so we all thought we were doing the greatest thing. And very few of us actually were. Because in reality, what I do now is I listen to customers. It's not just my mind sitting in a room thinking about the best way to do things. It's about what solves a problem for somebody else. How do I make them look like a hero to their boss, right? What is it that their boss is gonna give them a promotion for? And how can I put other people in a position to succeed? I build the easy stuff, the nuts and bolts, all the things that everybody else has already built. We build those things because that's what people are used to, and that's what people need, and they've built their businesses on tops of standard processes. So it's not as sexy as building the hot new feature. It's building yet another auth plugin. Selling developers rather than selling the C-suite on the value of it. It's really talking to developers and sales engineers and talking about how this will make their life easier because of the way we've built, specifically in this case HarperDB. Refining requirements, that is whittling down what I thought people were going to want into a form that we can sort of use as a base for what people actually desire. And then defining a roadmap, understanding that we can't get it all done at once. No matter how big your company is, you always have more features than you have developers, and being able to prioritize that and understanding that sometimes your opinion is the most important thing, but rarely is that actually true. And customers will tell you where they are hurting, and it's your job to be very effective at prioritizing the things that are going to make their lives better. I think when you start off, planning your attack on the world, right? Your app, your thing, your new feature at work, it could be as simple as a form or subscribing to an API and then presenting that data. To quote Mike Tyson, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, and that is your idea of what it's going to be. But really, those are just thoughts in your own headspace. And architecture, drawing it out, that totally makes sense. And I have a really good feeling for where all the servers might be and where the application would be and where the API is going to be and how they're going to talk to each other. And then who my users are is just me telling a story, but all of that is couched in the biases that I bring into any given situation. Because in practicality, the beta is the thing that's going to teach you the most about your customers and about what you've built. I've been handed designs on a napkin. I've been handed really ornate Photoshop templates, and I've written, applications and websites that at the end of the day meet the requirements, look sort of like the design, but in practicality, by the time you launch, you realize that button should never have been there. That button didn't even lead anywhere. The design got signed off on by people who never really had to build it or click on it. So the theoretical design phase, gives way fairly quickly to users who are like, I don't know why I have to go all the way through this just to do the one thing that I really want to do. Fair enough. So we refine that design. And a lot of times it's not going back to designers to do it. It's on you as the developer to understand and intuit with your experience that this design is a framework, it is a suggestion, and you can work with the designer to actually implement something that's real. Because the things you click are, way more important than the comp, because that's the thing that your customer or your user can interact with. And the other thing is, as much as you might be solving a pain point for yourself when you decide to build something, you're probably not the target customer. You are the person who can solve a problem, and you're the person who can build the solution. But even if you were the target customer, by the time you've actually built it, you aren't anymore, because you're way too close to it to recognize the things that I make massive assumptions about my user base. And I don't want to carry that into, sort of the final deliverable, because I'm thinking about a lot of other things besides the things that customers are talking about. So I want to make sure that I'm listening to them and taking their point of view into perspective. And with experience comes the ability to sort of do that, to sort of take a step back and say, I know that I'm supposed to deliver this list, but what I really want to do is sort this list and have it come back in a certain order, because that feels like the right answer. And then you go to market and everybody tells you that's the most absurd idea that has ever been produced, and you need to sort it like this. Just accept that there's no pride of authorship, when you're trying to solve a problem for people that aren't you. It truly is like an art and a science, and it's all about collaboration, understanding what customers are going to try to do. In our case at HarperDB, they want to store data, and they want to get data presumably back out at some point and do things with it, right? And so designing the experience of putting data in and getting data out, there's lots of other databases in the world. How do they do it? But if it's always been pretty hard to set up a database connector and open a connection, or remember to hold that connection open and to query it and then to get back the result, and then don't close your connection too early, because then that data won't exist and you won't be able to present it. Your intuition is that, or at least at HarperDB it was, that people are making HTTP calls from inside their apps. They're making API calls. So maybe we should just build an API on top of our database so that people could just get the data the way they're already doing it, rather than involving some other connector, some other driver. So a lot of time that intuition that comes with being a developer and having built things that didn't feel as easy as you thought they were going to do, they would make me think, like, is there a way for me to remove buttons from this, right? And to further simplify it and to take away moving parts, because this whole industry is so complex. If I could just be one bastion of simplicity inside this sea of complexity, then I feel like we will have hit that mark. And in order to accomplish that in a reasonably objective way, measurement is key. Understanding, when users are coming in, how long it's taking to load the page, what your page rank score is, what are all the tools that demonstrate a usable experience. Optimize nothing. That Donald Knuth is a computer science professor and kind of hero of the industry from Boulder, and he says premature optimization is the death of lots of companies. Effectively, don't try to optimize it and abstract it until you're sure that it actually works, because until you put it in front of real people, you don't know, and then all that work gets tossed out. The process of success then is that process by which there's no pride of authorship, and the process of getting it done is just as important as getting it done itself. So when I started, everything was always, it was due tomorrow, and it was like, we're going to stay late and we're going to work 80 hours this week, or we're going to go all the way around the horn just to deliver the thing on time. And that process, absolutely 100%, we delivered that thing on time. And then everybody wanted to quit. And really good developers and a really good development team is really hard to find. So you don't want to burn people out. So figure out what the process is where everybody feels heard, gets to participate and gets to lend their unique perspective is probably one of the most powerful things we've done at HarperDB. The great ideas really do come from anywhere. And when it comes to that process, managing yourself within it, I am always focused on, will it make me happy to do this, to maintain it 5 years from now, to be responsible and own it. What makes the market happy? Am I going into customers' spaces and asking them questions, and they're saying, this seems like a really good idea, Jaxon, or are they just asking really, really hard questions about why I'm such a failure and why this product will never work for them? And then ultimately, I think I know how to achieve a certain goal. I can meet the objective, the high level statement, but do I really understand, the process of getting to where I need to be rather than where I think I need to be? So why is the status quo what it is? What is the appetite for change? There are a lot of spaces where I could build an app that I think does it better, but perhaps, and this is an actual use case, the people who were doing most of the work in the space, the actual end users, had so much muscle memory around the tasks that they were performing that if I gave them a slightly different paradigm, it absolutely did not work for them. They just say no. And that's a massive amount of research that we went through, after building a product, and then have to refit that thing after the fact to accommodate, what the market actually is after. And the last one is a little controversial. It's just, I know my idea is original. I know it, nobody's ever thought of it before, and I know that it's going to change the world. And I'll be sitting on a beach earning 20%, and it's going to be great. And I get to wear sweatshirts all day, every day, and nobody will ever say that I don't know what I'm doing ever again. And the reality is, there are no original ideas. We are simply taking the concept of, in HarperDB's case, putting data into a place and getting it out in a way that causes you less anxiety and pain and ultimately financial distress than other platforms. And that's sort of our secret sauce. Your secret sauce isn't necessarily some massive thing. It could be as simple as one little feature. And then the environment of trust within which one can succeed, right? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And that is very true. When we were 10 people in a basement of a co-working space, there weren't that many people to assign work to. But I will say this about this team: every single person, whether or not it was in their wheelhouse, if I needed something, or if they needed something, if anybody needed something and somebody volunteered to do it, you knew that that person was going to complete that task, do the research, learn how to do it, and do it to the standards that we all sort of collectively agreed on. We have a hosted product where you can spin up a database with just a single click to sort of test drive HarperDB. That's built using AWS Lambda as the functions that sort of go through and collect all your data and the parameters of the server you want, and actually spin up the server on AWS and then send you an email notifying you. The person who built that had never worked with AWS Lambda ever, had never worked with e-commerce and Stripe ever. But he and I spent 3 months together, communicating every day and being as, I think, generous and accepting of our limitations as we could possibly be. And then it launched miraculously, and it worked, which is even better. And it was one of those things where we were just authentic with each other. We knew our limitations. And when it didn't feel right, you see something awkward, you say something awkward, and you're not afraid to have that difficult conversation because we both want the same thing. I'm sorry I made you build it that way. In practice, I think it needs to work this way. And there'd be a sigh. But at the end of the day, we all knew that we were working for the same goal. Understanding the market, obviously, and researching that. And then finally, a picture is worth 1,000 words. There are a lot of people that see things and understand things and comprehend things differently than perhaps you do, or perhaps I do. I can picture lots of things in my mind, and it is the job of 1 or 2 people in this company to extract them from my mind and put them in a form that's usable for other human beings in this company. And it takes practice to figure out how to communicate when you might be a visual learner versus the kind of person who just wants to build it and watch it break and rebuild it and try again and again and again. That was always my methodology, right? I wasn't classically trained. I taught myself. So I would just do it over and over and over again until it worked, and then do it over and over and over again until it was a little bit faster. And that was sort of my approach. Other people could just draw a picture with a bunch of boxes and totally get it. So understanding what your teammates are capable of and how they succeed, and building a team ultimately that is trying to build something that changes the world. And then finally, complexity kills. And I'll read the whole quote because it's awesome. Complexity kills. It sucks the life out of developers. It makes products difficult to plan, build, and test. It introduces security challenges, and it causes end user and administrator frustration. And if there's one guiding principle at HarperDB, it's simplicity without sacrifice. It's our tagline, and it should just work is my personal tagline. So really, I was meant to work at this company. Before I ever even applied, I've been espousing the idea that simplicity is the key, because our lives are so complex. All of a sudden, your market differentiator could be that you are a little bit slower, a little bit more expensive, and you're just easier to use. And that might be enough for like a decent chunk of the market. A core principle of simplicity being the value that we pursue the most. I had a friend of mine a long time ago. He said, the best UI is no UI. Right. So the system just does the thing you're expecting it to do, and you don't need any dials or buttons to get it to do it. It understands. That's a little, forward-looking AI, Skynet, robots murder us all. But at the end of the day, the fewer buttons there are, the fewer things there are for people to mess up. And ultimately, by messing up, we're saying you're having a less than satisfying customer journey. The best demo takes under 5 minutes. These long-ranging things where I walk you through every feature of a product or a website. I'd rather demonstrate a bunch of it and then ultimately open it up for questions, because I don't want to sell all these features into a void and have them come back and say, I was totally on board until you showed me that, which makes me believe that we fundamentally disagree at a core level about how the world's supposed to work. So really, it's about discovery and respecting the point of view of the person sitting across from you. And then when users win, we win. We don't just win maybe financially through sales and selling a lot of stuff. We win because it's easier to use, which means fewer questions in our support forum, fewer tickets filed in our ticketing system, fewer or more PRs and more GitHub stars on our projects. So the easier we make it, the more things start rolling in a good way. And it's not, again, just sales. It's all of that other stuff that makes you feel good as a person. Not that you're just cranking away code that solves the problem, but you're doing it in a way that people say, oh, that's different than all the other people who've written code to solve this problem. It's better. It cares about me. It cares about how I think and how I work. And it's a practice. You're never done, right? You're not done killing complexity. We're always looking for ways to make it simple, whether or not that's existing features. And we've had a couple things where we rolled it out, saw it in actual production, saw the way people were using it, watched as the concerns or questions came into support forum, and realized we've made a terrible mistake. In the database world, there's lots of things you can do to tweak and tune how it performs. And at Harper, we've sort of abstracted a lot of those away, because usually somebody just goes to Stack Overflow and says, where should all these dials and switches be for the best performance? So we went ahead and internalized that, because people have a lot of stuff to worry about in a distributed system. If you think about your application stack with your API server and your UI and your database and all the moving parts you've got in just a normal app, with micro front ends and microservice APIs, you might have 100 moving parts, and you can maintain that, and lots of apps do great with that. But as soon as you try to put that application in a distributed system where you've got lots of these things spread around to lower latency because you're closer to users, Let's say I want to put it in 100 places because my users are all over the planet. Well, with 100 moving parts, now I've got 10,000 moving parts to worry about. So the more things we can boil in, and the more decisions where we can take a little liberty, not to alienate people, but just because we've got 99% of the performance out of this equation, the better we feel about how users are going to react when we say, and now we're going to put it in 1,250 places around the world. And then understanding the balance between not just the code, but the user experience, because there are things that you can optimize and things that you can refine that users will never see. But you can do that forever. One of the fake quotes that I often use in presentations is, I could spend a full year optimizing our query pattern to reduce the amount of latency in a workload by 5 milliseconds, or I could just move 250 miles closer to the user. And the reality is we can optimize and optimize and optimize, but sometimes the solution is staring us right in the face. It's just be closer to the user, build a distributed system. Of course, that raises a ton of questions around how hard is a distributed system to build. And I think, and Margot would back me up on this, it's really hard, but it's even harder to make it look easy and make it feel like it's not a bridge too far for developers who are looking to perhaps lower latency and lower costs and perhaps invest in a distributed system and all of the learning that goes along with that. And then part two, sort of building on that evolves. This is a picture of the studio for HarperDB. When I got to the company, they were demoing our product to really big customers like automobile manufacturers and other database companies that were considering purchasing us. And they were using Postman and the terminal, which absolutely demonstrated that HarperDB was installed and demonstrated you're putting data in and you get data out. But it's not a simple user experience. It's not cohesive. And so one weekend, I just built a HTML studio and React that interacted with the operations API, the API that we built into HarperDB, and sort of put a face on the name. And immediately the conversation changed because we had made it easier for people to understand and see the actual thing that was happening in a distributed system. I could put data into one node of HarperDB, and I could switch over to another node and see the data had been replicated between the two. Demonstrating that with Postman and a terminal, starting up instances in other places of the planet, just wasn't a great user experience from a sales perspective. It's not a great sales motion to say, trust me, your developers will get this, but you, the account manager or CEO or CIO, you might not deal with terminals anymore or even know what Postman is, but trust me, your devs will love it. It's a really hard conversation to get from point A to point B. I mean, ultimately, the core values that drive a superior user experience is the team is number one. It's a collaborative process. I don't know everything about anything. I'm not great at a lot of the things we do. I rarely am allowed to write code anymore, much to everybody on the engineering team's relief. But I was decent enough to put it out there, and I was surrounded by teammates who were also trying to figure it out. And we built something that was super cool. And the number one thing we did was focus on that simplicity and making it not hard for us to build, nor hard for users to use. And sometimes, we did more work on the back end to make it look easy. But a lot of times it is simply making a choice to not do the thing, not add the button, not add the feature yet, because nobody's asked for it. So a lot of times I think back on my career when I was building things, man, I implemented the whole roadmap in the beta. I built every feature and it took me months. And then I realized that probably I was just doing it because I like building stuff and not because I ever wanted the market to really care about it or use it. Trust your intuition, and that comes with time. I've been doing this for like a really long time. I'm super old, but a lot of it comes from, I remember doing this and I remember having to move a button that was exactly like that was supposed to do a thing like that. And I'm not sure that button has ever worked in the way that it's been described to me. And then we have advisors, people who, were at Microsoft when SQL Server was invented. So we talk about distributed computing and moving data between nodes and reconciling transactions, and we come up with what we think is a cool idea, and we run it by him, and Bob is his name. And he's like, well, I remember trying that in 82. Yeah, 82, and it didn't work then. I don't think it's going to work now. And he was right. It wasn't going to work. So your intuition and experience plays a big role in the steps you can make and the cuts you can make to complexity as you drive forward. And preparing to fail. Don't hold on to pride. It might have been the best button or API integration you've ever done in your life. And I routinely push code up, and other people look at me and go, are we sure it should work like that? And I'm like, well, in the fog of war, in the middle of the night, yeah, that's exactly how it should have worked. But in reality, I can see your point. It probably should not, especially since nobody knows how to use that button. And then we'll rebuild it. And there's no shame in that. We're all running as fast as we can to get to the goal of a product that everybody loves. And sometimes we're going to trip on a hurdle. We help our teammates up and we run with it. And then last, and certainly not least, listen to the people, listen to their pain points, and listen very, very closely to how they hope to gain from you selling this in at their organization, right? Because these are individuals who have their own hopes and dreams and aspirations, and they want to get a promotion, and they want to look like a hero to their boss. And so we try really hard to focus on the individuals sitting across the table, and what's the version of a TPS report that they're going to print out this month and hand to their boss, and that if they buy our product, they can hand to their boss next month, and the boss will say, that's incredible, like you're definitely, up for a raise or a promotion or whatever, because that person is going to be loyal to us, not just for the product, but loyal honestly to the team. So we might move on to 10 other products, and we'll always have a resource there for selling in something or testing something, because they believe in you and they believe that you care about them. I will say that a long time ago, I talk about my family. My father wasn't a very nurturing person, and what he truly believed was that education was the answer, and being the smartest person in the room was the answer, and being clever and being able to solve problems was the answer. And I carried that with me for a long time. Just being smart enough, I would win. It turns out that it's very little of the actual solution to the problem. It turns out listening to other people and accepting that you don't know everything. But even more than that, even if you know a lot, understanding perspectives of other people, specifically users, and why they're experiencing pain and what you can do to help alleviate it is the key. And that doesn't necessarily come from us, from me, right? Because I've built it. I know how it works. I know the happy path. I take the happy path every time because I built the path. It's easy for me to click on that. Turn it over to somebody who has no idea what they're doing and try to explain to them the benefits of a distributed system and how this particular UI helps them control and basically deliver one on a global scale. Listen to them, or listen to the intern at your company when you put them on it, or a completely inexperienced a developer who's never touched your product before, and see what they come up with. And I will tell you 10 times out of 10, their criticisms are worth way more than any critical assessment I could ever make as I go through my own product. Ultimately, it's about really being able to be empathetic, being able to be compassionate, not having pride of authorship, and not really caring that I may have made a bad choice, because that's the amazing thing about software, is that I can just type something else and it can get better. And that ultimately makes for a happy life and ultimately a happy organization. And I think that was 25 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was fantastic. I like the emphasis on simplicity. We do have time for questions. We did have a couple come through in the chat, but if anyone wants to unmute and ask them, please feel free. Or if you have any you'd like to type in,